in Chinese temples, in police stations, in restaurants, in business offices. You will often see the same face. A red-faced warrior with a long beard, holding a massive blade, staring forward with absolute loyalty. His name is Guan Yu. But here is the strange part. Guan Yu was not an emperor. He was not the founder of a dynasty. He never ruled all of China. He did not even win the war he fought in. In fact, he died after a devastating military defeat. Yet today, Guan Yu is worshipped as a god. He is honored by soldiers, respected by business people, guarded by monks, prayed to by gangsters, and promoted by governments. For nearly 2,000 years, his image has stood for loyalty, honor, and righteousness. How did a defeated general become one of the most powerful gods in Chinese civilization? To understand this, we must go back to one of the most chaotic periods in Chinese history, the Age of Warlords, the fall of an empire, the time known as the Three Kingdoms. At the end of the Han Dynasty, China was collapsing. Rebellions spread across the land. The imperial court lost control. Regional warlords began to fight for power. Among them was a man named Liu Bei. Liu Bei claimed to be a distant relative of the Han royal family, but in reality, he started with almost nothing. He had no army, no territory, and no strong allies. What he did have, there were two men who would become legendary. One of them was Guan Yu, the other was Zhang Fei. According to historical records, Guan Yu was a tall and imposing man, known for his courage, his discipline, and above all, his loyalty. He followed Liu Bei through defeat after defeat, never abandoning him, even when victory seemed impossible. During the wars of the late Han period, China was eventually divided between three powerful rulers. In the north, the warlord Cao Cao built the strongest army in the country. In the south, Sun Quan controlled the rich lands along the Yangtze River. And in the west, Liu Bei established the Kingdom of Shu. This period would later be called the Three Kingdoms. Guan Yu came to be one of Shu's most important generals. He fought in many battles, won several victories, and earned a reputation for bravery. But history is not a legend, and real life is not a novel. In the year 219, Guan Yu launched a campaign to capture Jing province, a strategic region controlled by Sun Quan. At first, the attack was successful, but the situation changed quickly. Sun Quan formed a secret alliance against him. Guan Yu's supply lines were cut. His army was surrounded. After a series of defeats, he was captured. Soon after, Guan Yu was executed. He did not die as an emperor. He did not die as a conqueror. He died as a defeated general, in the middle of a failed campaign. In real history, Guan Yu was respected. He was known as a loyal officer, a brave warrior, and a man of strong character. But he was not a god. Not yet. History remembered Guan Yu as a loyal general. But history alone does not create gods. The transformation began centuries later, during the Ming Dynasty, with the writings of one of the most famous books in Chinese literature. Its name was Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The novel is traditionally attributed to Wu Guanzhong, a writer who lived more than 1,000 years after the real Guan Yu. The story was based on historical events, but it was not meant to be a history book. It was meant to teach values. And among all the values in the novel, none was more important than loyalty. In the opening chapters, the story tells of the famous Oath of the Peach Garden. Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei sworn brotherhood under heaven. They promised to live together, fight together, and die together. Not for power, not for wealth, but for righteousness. This scene may not be historical, but it came to be one of the most powerful stories in Chinese culture. Throughout the novel, Guan Yu is portrayed as the perfect warrior. When he is captured by Cao Cao, he refuses to betray Liu Bei. When he is surrounded by enemies, He fights his way through 5 passes and slays 6 generals to return to his lord. When he meets Sun Quan's forces, he walks into their camp alone, armed with nothing but his blade and his honor. Again and again, the story shows the same message. Strength may win battles, but loyalty makes a man immortal. In the novel, Guan Yu was no longer just a general. He became the embodiment of loyalty itself. And once a man represents a moral ideal, he can become something more than human. For millions of readers, Guan Yu was not only a hero, he was the definition of righteousness. And when a culture begins to see a man as the symbol of virtue, it is only a matter of time before that man becomes a god. Stories made Guan Yu legendary. Religion made him divine. In China, the line between history legend and faith has never been completely separated. Unlike many Western religions, Chinese religious tradition allows heroes to become gods. One of the most important traditions in this process was Taoism. Taoism had a long history of turning historical figures into protective spirits, immortals, and heavenly officials. And Guan Yu was the perfect candidate. He was loyal, he was brave, he was disciplined. He died without betraying his lord. These were not only heroic qualities, they were sacred ones. During the Song dynasty, emperors began to give Guan Yu official titles. At first, the honors were symbolic. He was praised as a loyal general, a model of virtue, a protector of the state. But with each generation, his status grew higher. Temples were built in his name. Prayers were offered to his spirit. Stories of miracles began to spread. By the Ming dynasty, the transformation was completed. Guan Yu was no longer just a historical figure. He had become Guandi, the Emperor Guan. He was called the Saint of War, the protector of justice, and the defender of the righteous. In religious texts, he appeared not as a man, but as a divine warrior, standing beside the gods. Chinese religion does not separate history and myth. A man who lived bravely can be remembered as a legend. A legend who represents virtue can be worshipped as a spirit. And a spirit who protects the people can become a god. In Taoist belief, Guan Yu was no longer a general of Shu. He had become the god of war. And his journey was still not finished, because the next religion that embraced him would make his influence even greater: Buddhism. Guan Yu had become a god in Taoism, but his story did not stop there. Another great religious tradition in China would soon adopt him as well. That tradition was Buddhism. Buddhism entered China nearly 2,000 years ago, bringing with it new ideas about karma, protection, and spiritual guardians. As Buddhism spread across the country, monks built temples in cities, villages, and mountains. But temples needed protectors. Not only spiritual protectors, but warriors. Figures who could defend the faith against demons, disasters, and human violence. In Chinese Buddhist tradition, these protectors were known as temple guardians. And over time, Guan Yu became one of them. According to later legends, the spirit of Guan Yu appeared before Buddhist monks and swore to defend the teachings of the Buddha. He was given the title of a Dharma protector, a guardian of the sacred law. Statues of Guan Yu began to appear inside Buddhist temples, standing near the entrance, watching over the halls, holding his great blade. In these temples, he was not worshipped as a conqueror. He was honored as a protector, a warrior who used his strength, not for ambition, but for justice. In Buddhism, Guan Yu was not a king, not an emperor, not even a god of victory. He became something else: a guardian of temples, a defender of the faith, and a symbol of righteous power. By this time, Guan Yu was no longer only a figure from history. He existed in stories, in religion, in ritual, and in daily life. But his influence was about to grow even further, because the people who would worship him next were not monks and not soldiers. They were merchants. At first glance, it may seem strange that business people would pray to a warrior. But in China, the connection makes perfect sense. Traditional Chinese society was built on relationships. Contracts were often spoken, not written. Deals depended on reputation, not law. And the most important word in this system was not profit. It was righteousness. In Chinese culture, the character Yi means righteousness, honor, and moral duty. A man who keeps his word has Yi. A man who betrays trust, lose is it. For merchants, trust was everything. Without trust, there could be no partnership. Without partnerships, there could be no trade. Without trade, there could be no wealth. This is why merchants began to worship Guan Yu, not because he was strong, not because he won battles, but because he never broke an oath. In stories, Guan Yu refused to betray Liu Bei, even when offered wealth and power. He kept his promises, even when it meant death. To business people, this made him the perfect protector. Shops placed his statue near the entrance. Offices built small shrines to his image. Traders burned incense before signing agreements. They believed that under the eyes of Guan Yu, no one would dare to cheat. In China, business was built on trust, and Guan Yu became the god of trust. But merchants were not the only ones who believed in loyalty above all else. There was another world, hidden from the law, where brotherhood meant survival. And in that world too, Guan Yu was watching. The world of secret societies and gangsters. Merchants worshipped Guan Yu for trust. Soldiers worshipped him for courage. Monks worshipped him for protection. But there was another world in China, where loyalty was not just a virtue. It was survival. This world was known as the Jianghu. In Chinese culture, Jianghu means the world outside official society, a place of wandering warriors, secret societies, brotherhoods, and outlaws. In this world, law did not always exist, but honor did. Men formed sworn brotherhoods, just like the famous Oath of Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei. They promised loyalty, shared danger, and absolute silence. To break an oath was worse than death. Because of this, many secret societies began to worship Guan Yu. To them, he was not just a hero. He was the ultimate brother. During the late imperial period, groups like the Hongmen and other underground brotherhoods placed statues of Guan Yu in their meeting halls. In the modern era, his image could be found in the headquarters of organized crime groups in Hong Kong. Members burned incense before him, swore loyalty in his name, and believed he punished betrayal. Even outside the law, loyalty still needed a god. And that god was Guan Yu. By this point, Guan Yu was worshipped by monks, by merchants, by soldiers, and by criminals. But the group that promoted him the most was neither religion nor the underworld. It was the state. Chinese emperors understood something very well. An empire cannot survive without loyalty. Officials must be loyal to the throne. Soldiers must be loyal to their commanders. People must be loyal to the state. And so, rulers began to look for symbols that could teach obedience without using force. Guan Yu was perfect. He was brave, but not rebellious. He was powerful, but always loyal to his lord. During the Song dynasty, emperors began granting him official titles. During the Ming dynasty, his status rose even higher. Temples dedicated to Guan Yu were built across the empire. He was given the title Guandi, Emperor Guan. Under the Qing dynasty, his worship spread even further. Government officials promoted his image as the model of loyalty and righteousness. People were told, serve your ruler, as Guan Yu served Liu Bei. Keep your word, as Guan Yu kept his oath. Protect orders, as Guan Yu protected his lord. Every dynasty needed loyal subjects, and Guan Yu became the perfect symbol. By the end of imperial China, he was no longer just a historical figure. He was a god of war, a guardian of temples, a protector of businesses, a patron of brotherhoods, and a symbol of the state itself. But the real meaning of Guan Yu goes deeper than religion. and deeper than politics. To understand why he is still worshipped today, we must understand something about Chinese civilization itself. In many cultures, gods create heroes, but in China, heroes can become gods. Guan Yu was not worshipped because he conquered the world. He was not worshipped because he founded a dynasty. He was not worshipped because he lived a perfect life. He was worshipped because he never betrayed. For more than 1800 years, Chinese people watched kingdoms rise and fall. Dynasties changed, emperors died, armies marched, cities burned. Power never lasted, wealth never lasted. Even empires did not last. But some things were believed to last forever. Loyalty, honor, righteousness. In Chinese tradition, a man who lives by these values does not truly die. His name survives. His story survives. And if his virtue is great enough, he becomes something more than human. Guan Yu was once a general who lost a war. Today he stands in temples, in homes, in police stations, in restaurants, in offices, and in places where brothers swear loyalty. Not as a memory, not as a legend, but as a god. That is why a defeated general became one of the most powerful divine figures in China. And that is why, after nearly 2,000 years, Guan Yu still watches over the Chinese world today.